Welcome to Energy Stew. This is Peter Roth, your host. And I'd like to ask you, what does your future hold? What are you up to? Or let's say, what's up to you? We don't know which way it goes. Are we leaders or followers of our lives? And we hope to be leaders, but actually, if we try too hard, we can get in our own way. So, how do you know how to stay out of your own way properly? So, to help us do that is a wonderful friend and a woman who is actually leading an incredible summit that starts this weekend. And so I've asked her to be on the show and talk about that and talk about life because it's what the summit is about. It's about how we're being led forward one way or another. And presumably through the summit, we can learn to do a better job of how we're led forward. Grace Gravestock, welcome to Energy Stew. I'm so glad we could talk.
Thank you, Peter. I'm excited to be here and really to talk about this question of how much control do we really have in our lives. That's what you and I have. We started talking before we were recording, and I think it's such a fascinating question to ask because in this summit, my premise is it's called the Know Yourself Revolution. I had a vision. Actually, I had a vision that was precipitated by my reading with you about 6 years ago. And after that reading, I mean, my whole life changed. And that reading was pivotal because I realized when I listened to the third time the recording of our session, I heard this voice inside my head that said, "You're not broken after all. You're actually perfect the way you are. You're perfectly designed to be and do exactly what you came here to be and do." And that voice and that message has really driven me since that time, since I first met you about 6 years ago, Peter.
Well,
And it's brought us home.
I'm honored to be a part of that. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, I mean, you've been such a world changer yourself in so many ways that we were talking about before we started recording. That's one of the topics, like how what to what extent do we have control over what we're here to be and do. But let me just say this, the premise of the summit is this: it's the Know Yourself Revolution. So imagine a world where most people are actually living in alignment with their design, whether they know human design or not. If they're listening to their own internal guidance system, what a different world it would be than people running around being, listening to whatever they're listening to that doesn't have anything to do with who they really are. And so how much disharmony that creates in the world. So my vision is by 2025, we positively impact 5 billion people through frequency and resonance and through collaboration and energetic partnerships with amazing people like you, Peter, and we can raise the frequency of the planet. But the question is that you and I were talking about: to what extent do we have agency to really do that? If like for people who understand human design, the idea is that we are just running a program. So like, could we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and actually you reminded me of something in my human design that because I've been wondering why in my life I've met so many important people who are have been very big players in the world, and and I have a long history of these interactions, and why me, and how come everybody else doesn't? And as you knew from my human design, I'm born to be an opportunist. So I not only seek opportunity of others, of meeting and knowing others and learning from others, but also we know that life meets our human design. Life presents us with who we're here to be. So life is, miraculously brought amazing people into my life that I've taken the opportunity of knowing, but I don't know how and why they showed up, but because of our human design, they're designed to.
Right. And And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show, on my show, because the premise of it is successful entrepreneurs who have created a life intentionally that they want to live, that they're excited about living based on who they uniquely are. And so your question just it demonstrates in so many ways why and how you've had you continue to have this incredible life, and you meet all these amazing people, and you've changed the world in so many ways. And so before we started recording, we were talking about that. Could you share a little bit more about that? Because I mean, you're so incredibly exceptional, Peter. I can't even think of anyone else that's changed the world in not just one, but how many, like, and these are only the ways that you know of. But we were talking about at least three things. Would you
Yeah,
mind just
it's
sharing a little
yeah,
bit?
it's to me it's magical, and it's kind of I can't explain it because when I was young, there were very low expectations for me, of me, about me. And I was told, even in high school, I was told, don't bother going to college, you're not bright enough, uh, you know, and my previous wife, her mantra was I was a good for nothing, who would never amount to anything. And so here I come from the programming around me that don't expect much of yourself. And so I didn't know what to expect other than just following my instincts, which led me to places that were unbelievable. And I just, you know, brought myself there. Um, even in the early days when I don't have a strong body. I'm fast on my feet, but not a sprinter, not that kind of, but I'm a middle distance runner who did well when I was younger. But the rest of my body was a failure. And I was fearful and all of that. So at one point, I went to karate school to try to get strong, and I became a third degree black belt, and I was in national competition, and I even did a nightclub act one summer, breaking boards. And who could ever imagine this guy? And life went on and on in those ways that I found myself in situations that, like as a runner, I just happened to be the right time, the right place to be one of the founders of the New York City Marathon. And then ideas would come to me. And one time I was the director of a summer speed program in Central Park, and it's a 3.5 miles, 3 times in the summer, and you could just show up, give me $1, and I was the race director, so you could run 3.5 miles, and in the race, and that was fine. One day I saw people walking into the park wearing baseball jerseys for their company baseball team, and I said, running doesn't have anything like that because this is in the early 70s, and I said, or mid 70s actually, we have to bring this kind of thing in. So I turned my summer speed program into a company run. You could only run if you ran for your company. And so I brought it to Roadrunner's office, and we agreed that we should do it, and went to a bank, and the bank agreed to sponsor it. And within a number of years, every Wednesday night, we'd have 26,000 runners.
Wow.
And it became called now it's called the Chase Corporate Challenge, and it's all over the world. It's the largest race series in the world. And so I think I had, because that brought out thousands and thousands of people, tens of thousands of people to run who might not have otherwise, and gotten in, you know, gotten into healthy condition because of that. And
Well, and
so,
that's not even to mention the documentary that was produced based on that story too, and all the people who got into running because of the documentary about you, Peter. I mean, and there's so many other pieces, but I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to say there's so many extra like legs that this has, and all of it is how amazing it is that you have created this amazing life by following your design. So we just talked about how you've changed the world as the marathon, because of the marathon, and how you impacted all those hundreds of thousands and millions of people by now just through starting that, and then all the lives that were changed, and then all the lives, you didn't even mention it, but I did with the documentary. And I know you've got a couple others, so I don't mean to interrupt you. I want you to keep going, but I just want to say there's so many tentacles that this has that there's no possible way to even know what an impact you've had just by living your design, just by being
Yeah.
yourself, just by
Well,
being an opportunist.
and my design, one of the aspects is one of the strengths of my design is called intuitive awareness in the now. Um, as you know, it's the 48 to the 16. I mean the 57 to the 20. These are little human design terms, and so my life has been run by the power of my intuition. And so, for instance, I was on the phone one night with a woman out in California who owned a big ranch. And all of a sudden, I'm hearing there are powerful rocks in her property that she should. And I asked her if she knew about them. And she said no. So I said, you go out on your property, you're going to find some powerful rocks. So she did and called me the next day. I found them. I found them. And it was actually slag. It was leftover glass from a bottling company from the gold rush era. They were making whiskey bottles for the gold rush miners, and they were using very, let's call them sacred powders in that area of Mount Shasta, and they were making glass from that. It turns out that after they left and they left the glass, that glass now is called Andara crystal and is considered the most powerful crystal in the world. And she didn't know about it until I sent her out to find it. It might still be sitting in a field and nobody knows about it. And she ended up becoming a legend for the discoverer of Andara crystal. And it's like, huh? How
But
did,
you were actually the one that pointed it out.
right, right. So our human designs have strengths in them. Everybody has wonderful strengths in their human design and shadows. So I've had a life of the shadows also that are struggles. Like for instance, my identity is undefined. So I never have any idea of who I really am.
Which is the same for me too. We have that in common.
Uh-huh. So we have to pronounce ourselves in life. And so there are so many ways that we're designed that we just can't help it. And if I had known that when I was young, if I had known my human design and understood the strengths of it and could just follow that, I would have had much more belief in myself and hope for myself that was miraculous. And so I think we all have to, understand the miracle we're here to be by knowing how we're designed. And your summit has a lot of different people who have so many different ways that they present life and the magic in the world and in humanity to help us know our way and find our way better.
Yeah, what's been so exciting to me about interviewing all these amazing people, and this is a pre-recorded summit, so that's why I can say all the just about all the recordings are done now, and it does start Saturday. So if you're interested in meeting other amazing people like Peter, who are world changers, who are positively impacting the planet through these the higher frequencies, I'm going to say, then please check it out, knowyourselfrevolution.com. But I want to say, Peter, that about you, I'd love for you to share that story about how you changed the world for disabled people and how you changed the world for non-disabled people who now are more aware of that. Because I think that's a story that I haven't heard before. That is another way that you've absolutely changed the world, but is unsung. Because I doubt there's many
Well,
people that know that
I
story. Would you
mentioned
mind
in
sharing it?
yeah, I mentioned in books about it, related to it. But yeah, I'd love to. So when I was teaching an exercise class at the West Side Y in the early 70s in a big gym, a guy came in and said, I'm here to join the class. And I said, all right, as long as you know that the last 10 minutes we run around the inside of the gym. And in order to be in the class, you have to run with us. And he said, well, I don't do that because you can see I'm an amputee, above the knee amputee, actually. And that whoever heard of an amputee running in those days, because prostheses weren't that good and crutches weren't an easy way to run. And so amputees really had a tough time. So nobody thought of that. And he didn't want to do it. And I said, well, I'm sorry, you can't join the class unless you do it. I didn't know why I was being so tough on him, but I felt I needed to be. And he gave in. I said, look, I'll lope with you around the gym, even if you do one lap of loping, and I'll lope with you. At least, you can be in the class. And he said, okay. And he turned out he was able to lope on his prosthesis and got better and better at it, and eventually went outdoors and started to do longer distance at it. And a couple of years later, he became the first amputee to ever cross the finish line of a marathon. And he made the front pages of newspapers all around the world. He was invited to the White House. He was the inspiration for Terry Fox to run across Canada and raise tens of millions of dollars for cancer, because Terry Fox lost his leg, and he was inspired by my friend to do that. So much has happened from this moment in the gym where I just needed to be tough on a disabled person.
And that maybe that was your splenic awareness in the now, and maybe that was you being an opportunist, in seeing this opportunity to help push this guy a little bit to help
I
him
don't know why
maximize his potential.
you're making it smart. No, I didn't know why I was being tough on him, but I just felt I had to, and that's because I was guided and he was guided to change the world for amputees, and
Right.
now the world has changed greatly because of him.
Well,
So
that's the point that I want to make, Peter, is you were living your design. You were just simply showing up, doing what you're here to be and do. And that's the message that I have for all of us, and because that was so pivotal when I learned that from you 6 years ago, that we're all perfectly designed to be and do what we're here to be and do. And there's no mistakes about it. And there's no reason that there's nothing wrong with us that we have to fix. That was a really big aha for me. So this summit has been a profound experience for me, just meeting all these amazing people who have created these fascinating lives that are definitely the road less traveled. I mean, there's one guy in there, for instance, he is a classical musician, very top ranking. I'm not sure how to talk appropriately about people that are at the top of their game when it comes to classical music, but he's in that category. And he had a vision to listen to music out in the woods, and so he started this thing called Strings in the Woods. And now he has so much time freedom and location freedom and financial freedom because he has vision, and he wanted to create this amazing life. I mean, for him it was just the life that he wanted, but for other people looking on, like, who would have even thought? And so yet that you could do that. So he's leading by example, as all of these people are, which is why I'm featuring them. Because as you know, Peter, we're in a tough time right now for a lot of people. There's technology that's taking over jobs. There's people losing their work that they've spent years building their identity around. They've been doing this work, whatever that is, and now it's going away or changing in a significant way. What do they do? How do they get clarity in their next step? So this summit for me was a way to help answer that call and give people something to respond to. I mean, from a human design perspective, but also to let others lead by example and really give them a platform to share their stories, just like you, because so many people are living, they're just living their design, and yet they're having a huge and amazing impact. And not everyone has the impact that you have, Peter. I mean, to change the world in so many ways, but yet everybody
I
has
have
an
to
impact.
laugh when you say that because so little was expected of me in life that I didn't even know how to hold it and think that I would ever amount to anything.
Well,
But
and
I,
sometimes that's the secret. You have low expectations, and then you're never disappointed.
all right, and this time I'm in my 80s, And I just I'm so grateful for this life, incredibly blessed. But but a lot of it is because I just kept following my heart, not listening, not second guessing myself, not questioning or making other people right about putting me down, and just feeling like, oh, this feels good to do next, even though it didn't make sense. and,
Well,
and
and that's what I think of as the know yourself revolution, Peter. I mean, you are such a trailblazer, leading by example for all these years, going ahead of us. I was telling you before we started recording, the way I see you is kind of like Johnny Appleseed. You just walking merrily along your way and just throwing out all these seeds. And then sometimes you get to turn around and see the trees that have grown behind you as a result
right,
of the fruit that you've sown. And there's no way that you could know the
right,
impact that you've had. And
right.
yet, according to human design, that is your purpose, right? You're
Yeah,
living your purpose just by being yourself.
right. And it's shocking to me that I've grown in life in a way that, I wish I had known that when I was young, and I could have been more happier about this guy who wasn't supposed to succeed. So, so it's amazing that we all just have to keep following, because I think life leads us. We can't control it. As you and I know, we're passengers on the ship. The ship has its course written out in our human design, etc., and we're just following it the way our souls want us to, and our souls are leading the way, and we just have to really get our minds out of the way and just let our hearts and our souls guide us to what feels right and feels purposeful.
Right. So that was one of the big lessons that I learned through human design is to listen to my body and to start paying attention to what feels right, feels correct for me in my body, and listening to my inner guidance system, which for me is my sacral. It's the and that's huge. So that's also why in the summit, I've started the summit off by looking at each speaker's human design. And of course, my thing is human design without jargon, because a lot of my clients have, they get confused with all the human design terminology. But the point is to show how all people are a life that they want to lead, and it's specifically unique to their gifts. And I'm telling you, none of them have been surprised when I read their design. They're like, yeah, that's me. Wow. And most of them hadn't heard of human design. And yet the ones they're all happy with the life they've created, and they're just living their design. And so when they see that there is such a thing as a human design, energy blueprint, like that, they're just,
Yeah.
some of them are just amazed.
Human design is always 100% accurate. And when people hear me say that, they go, how can anything be that? And then you do their chart reading and they go, oh my God, that is so accurate. It's incredible. And then when we realize how accurate it is, then we're much more willing to let it guide us.
Yeah. Well, I know when I first started learning and to read charts, I was surprised at how people were responding to me. And my teacher said it's because you're seeing them like as if they're naked, and you're seeing them for who they really are. And so many people are so out of touch with who they really are that this is a shock to their system to hear that. And yet on some level they know it's true,
Right.
but nobody has seen them this clearly. Even they haven't seen themselves this clearly. So while it
Right.
it resonates with them, it's like getting your face splashed with cold water, because it's like, oh, how could you possibly know that? So
But
that's what's
but
so
it's always
amazing.
true. Yeah, it's always
And that
true.
it's always true. Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
what I tell people is that knowing your chart doesn't change anything. It just gives you a language about yourself that you haven't heard before.
Yeah. And I say it gives you permission to be you, because most people when they
Yeah,
when they
I
when they
love that.
ease into hearing their design, and we talk about it, they're like, yeah, okay. Yeah, it's validating, right? It's validating, because that does sound true. And now, in fact, it's been funny on some of the interviews. I hope you'll listen. Know Yourself Revolution.com. It's free ticket. Go
Yeah,
there
it's
and sign
free.
up as long as you get.
Your voice is breaking up a little bit, but so to emphasize that it's free. and there are links that are going to be um, also in the promo for this um, tomorrow morning, and then people can click in and find the opportunities of this wonderful summit.
Awesome. Yeah, and you'll get to hear a little bit more of Peter's backstory too, which I think is interesting to hear all the backstories of the speakers, because a lot of times they don't get asked that and they don't get to share it. But I mean, especially you, Peter. I'm so grateful to have you on the show and to learn more about. When I looked at your chart, I mean, of course, how we met was you were looking at my chart, but to look at your chart and then point out these things, that it's just so amazing how you're living in alignment with your design, and magical things happen to you. I mean, the kinds of people that you attract into your world are just phenomenal world changers. I mean, nobody gets to meet people like you. It's incredible. And yet you're living your design, and you're leading by example by doing that. I just think that's so extraordinary.
It's such a
Thank you.
blessing. So, and you have Alexander and Vicky as guests, and they're the card experts. And I know I'm a jack of spades, and that has incredible blessings with it, but it also has, um, its shadows that aren't easy. But all of us have to, understand that our shadows are actually they're blessings. They're because they veil some of our greatest powers. So. Um, So this is wonderful. We're almost out of time. I love talking with you, and thank you very much for actually appreciating me the way you do. I really love that, and both of us have undefined identities, so we both get shored up a lot when people um, identify us in good ways.
That's right. Well, when you're the one behind the microphone, most of the time you don't always get to share the same kinds of things. So I'm just grateful for the opportunity to give you a spotlight and show people how you are living your design. And not many people
Mm,
get to see your actual chart. So for people who are
thank you.
interested in that, you'll want to tune in. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Peter.
And how can people, well, I guess they'll follow up by finding the links to the summit, right?
Yeah, or you can go there if you're just listening. Knowyourselfrevolution.com is the landing page, and you'll see a short video. You'll put your name and email address in, and you'll get the links. And so every day for 7 days, there will be 3 interviews, and you'll get to hear the interviews. And you'll have 24 hours to listen to them, unless you upgrade to VIP, which you'll get this amazing life purpose roadmap as part of the VIP package, which I created. Again, thanks to Peter. Thanks for me this stuff, for opening my eyes to this whole new way of looking at life and helping me get in alignment with my path, and then also helping other people get in
Oh,
alignment with theirs. That's
I'm
what this
so
is about.
excited
Thank you.
about that. So great to know you. And thanks for being on Energy Stew. And this is Peter Roth, your host of Energy Stew at prn.live. I can be reached at Peter at uh, HEART river.org. I'd love to hear from you, and thanks so much for listening.